Hello and welcome to this episode of the REBT Advocates with Dr. Michael R. Adelstein of 3minutetherapy.com. You can find his book, 3 Minute Therapy, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life at therebt.life. And you can find that link below. And I'm Tommy Bateman. I'm a counselor in the Richmond, Virginia area. You can email us both at rebtadvocates@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your hate, or if you'd like to participate in the show, we would love to consider that. So Michael brought up a great thing. He had a quote from FDR. We're going to do a REBT analysis of FDR. But before we get started, Michael, do you want to say anything?
Yes. Just for our new viewers, you just heard the ringing voice of Tommy Bateman, who's an REBT expert, as I modestly think I am. REBT is rational emotive behavior therapy. It's a type of therapy that was devised by a genius in the field, Albert Ellis, who changed the psychotherapy movement dramatically. And I'm a clinical psychologist. I have 40 years experience helping people with REBT. And you can find my practice link and book link, 3 Minute Therapy, below.
All righty. So the famous quote, we all have heard it before many, many times. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. Michael, what's going on with this? What's going on? There's so many levels.
Yeah. Well, so there's various ways of interpreting this, and the generous interpretation is what he might be trying to say, and that is there's nothing to be concerned about except fear itself. Fear is really a type of anxiety. There are various types of anxiety. There's nervousness, there's panic, there's dread, and fear is one of them. So he really may mean we have nothing to be concerned about except fear itself. But that has a problem also, and that is there are lots of things to be concerned about. Our concern comes from our goals, our values, and our preferences. And normally we have a concern to achieve those and not sabotage those. So that's certainly a concern. Does that make sense, Tommy?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I think that is a healthy interpretation of his words. And in fact, may even be what he meant. But the thing is, politicians like to use very good rhetoric, and it sounds great. I mean, I'm going to be honest; it's a wonderful phrase, and it's rang throughout history for a very good reason. However, I like to address it. And I think I predict you like to address it as well, Michael. These type of things, because a lot of times we take the rhetoric in a dialectic way. We take the rhetoric on its face and interpret it in the most literal, concrete light, which may not have been the politician's intent in saying it. And so, and I've noticed a lot of people do take it in a uh, very little concrete way. Has that been your experience as well?
I'm not clear what you mean by taking it in a concrete way.
So that you really do have to fear itself, uh, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
and
Oh,
that
I
you
see.
don't have to have any concern necessarily about anything else.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And one of the problems is if we take it from an REBT perspective, literally, it creates a secondary disturbance
It
where
is
he
by
suggests,
definition a secondary disturbance.
yeah,
Fear of
that's right.
fear.
Exactly. Fear of fear. So a secondary disturbance means getting upset about being upset. So if you have fear or anxiety, that comes from a must. I must have a guarantee I'll do well and get approval. And if I don't, that's awful. So that creates fear. It's fear. And then if you fear fear, then that comes from another demand. I must not have fear or anxiety in the future. So then you have a must about a must. And REBT is allergic to all musts because they're demands, absolutes, fictions, and lead to global evaluations like I'm no good, you're no good, or life is no good. So fearing fear is in that sense is certainly not a good practice.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Uh, and let's take an RABAT approach when we talk about when we dispute these things, which is the next step in our 3 minute exercise. Is all right. So, what is the evidence that we have to fear fear? Where is it cosmically written in stone that fear has to be feared? I can't find it. I don't know where it exists, and even as a religious man myself, I don't see it in my holy text. I haven't seen it in others. Uh, I don't see it in our you know, looking at the world and what has happened. Now, can we say, Michael, that fear is oftentimes not advisable based on the evidence that we know?
Yes, I would say fear is never advisable
Mhm,
because let's take a physically dangerous situation. You're on a hike and all of a sudden a mountain lion appears.
mhm,
Uh, if you have fear, then you're going to tend to either freeze or run. So neither could be practical. It might be practical to pick up some stones and throw stones at the lion, or just try to appear big by raising your arms and spreading your legs.
mhm.
So if you have fear, that tends to cloud your thinking and divert you from the practical solution. So that's a problem in that case, even with a physical danger of fearing fear. It's better to be concerned and more reasonably ask yourself, what's the best approach right now to keeping myself safe?
Yes. So, in my background in law enforcement and of course protection of things, one of the people that constantly comes up is a guy named Gavin DeBecker, and he wrote a book, The Gift of Fear. Are you familiar with this one?
I am not, but the title is a little suspect. We would
Yes.
say the gift of great concern or great diligence or great or deep thinking
Mhm.
about uh, practical strategies.
Yes. His main thesis is that when we feel some anxiety or some fear about a situation, we need to listen to it because we may be unconsciously picking up on uh, some sort of unconsciously known stimulus.
Yeah, but what he's confusing is fear with concern and preference. So if you say, I prefer to avoid the lion, then that's concern or great concern, and he might be calling that fear. Just to give a more realistic example, often people have secondary anxiety about public speaking. So the way this usually works is you're scheduled to give a talk next week to a large audience, and you realize you might be anxious about the talk, about giving the talk, and about doing poorly. So you have a must. I must be sure I give a good talk. But then you think about feeling anxious during the talk, and you start feeling anxious now about the talk that's going to happen in 2 weeks. So you're anxious now about being anxious and giving a poor talk then. So that would be a common example of fearing fear or being anxious about anxiety. And the second anxiety tends to just magnify the first, so it doesn't really help. So if you're going to work on this, I usually recommend you work on the secondary disturbance first, in the way Tommy illustrated. Work on accepting the fact that you're an imperfect human who easily gets anxious, as all humans do, and just accept that's uncomfortable, that's too bad, but it's human nature, and there's no way I'm going to rise above human nature, and then move on from there.
Indeed. Well, lastly, the only, I mean, I didn't use the words, there are never any good time to have fear. Um, but the only hint I will leave is that I am a religious person. And one of the things we say is that, well, and it's written, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but that is again a different topic. So, Michael, I'll give you the last word.
Okay, my last word is, if you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know in the comments section below. Give us a thumbs up And please feel free to suggest subjects you'd like us to discuss. We often take those suggestions and run with them on our YouTube channel. Volunteer if you'd like some help with a problem from our perspective. Let us know. We'd be happy to have you on as a guest and help you with a problem. And donate to Patreon to help support us. So subscribe to the REBT Advocates to stay on the rational side of life.